There's a moment, you know the one. Everything has gone quiet. The world is still moving. People are talking, phones are buzzing, life is carrying on. But inside you, something has gone completely still. And in that stillness, a voice rises up. Soft at first, almost gentle. Maybe that's enough. Maybe this is just how it goes. That voice isn't your enemy. It's just scared. And scared things say scared things. But here's what I want you to understand before we go any further. Every single person who ever built something real, who ever changed something that mattered, who ever looked back at their life and felt that rare, quiet pride of a thing well done, every one of them heard that voice. And every one of them chose, in their own way, in their own moment, to keep going anyway. That choice, that one ordinary, extraordinary choice, is what this is about. Napoleon Hill spent 20 years of his life trying to answer one question. Not a complicated question, not a philosophical one. Just, why do some people make it and others don't? He sat across from Carnegie. He watched Edison work. He studied Ford, Lincoln, Rockefeller. The people who had somehow, against all reasonable odds, built lives and legacies that the world couldn't ignore. And after 20 years, after hundreds of conversations, after more research than most people do in a lifetime, he came back with an answer so simple, it almost sounds like a joke. The only difference between the people who made it and the people who didn't was that the people who made it refused to quit. That's it. Not smarter, not luckier, not better connected or born under a kinder star. They just wouldn't stop. I know, you've heard versions of this before. Never give up. It's on posters. It's in graduation speeches. It's been said so many times, it's almost lost its weight. But stay with me, because the real story is deeper than the slogan. It's 1914. Thomas Edison is 67 years old. Not young. Not at the beginning of something. 67 years old, and his entire laboratory, 30 years of work, millions of dollars of equipment, research that existed nowhere else on earth, catches fire and burns to the ground in one night. His son Charles runs through the smoke trying to find him, genuinely afraid of what state he might find his father in. A broken man, a destroyed man, a man who had given everything and watched it turn to ash. He finds Edison standing at the edge of the fire, watching the flames, and Edison turns to his son, and there's something on his face that Charles doesn't expect, something almost like wonder. He says, "Go get your mother. She'll never see a fire like this again." The next morning, Edison stands in the ruins and says, and I want you to really hear this, there is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burned up. Thank God we can start anew. 3 weeks later, he invented the phonograph. 3 weeks. I'm not telling you this to impress you with Edison. I'm telling you this because that response, that decision to see ash as a beginning rather than an ending, is not a talent. It's not a gift you're either born with or you're not. That is a choice, available to anyone, including you. I want to show you something. Before Abraham Lincoln became the president who held a broken country together through its worst war, before any of that, here's what his life actually looked like. Lost his job, defeated for legislature, business failed, his sweetheart died, nervous breakdown, defeated for speaker, defeated for Congress, lost re-election, rejected for land officer, defeated for Senate, passed over for vice president, defeated for Senate again, and then in 1860 elected president of the United States. Read that list slowly. Don't rush through it, because what you're reading isn't a list of failures. It's a map, a long, painful, humiliating map of a man who kept showing up. Not because it was going well, not because the evidence suggested he should, but because something inside him simply refused to accept that the story was over. And here's the thing about Lincoln that people miss. He wasn't stoic. He wasn't unaffected. He suffered deeply. He had what he called his hypos, episodes of such profound darkness that people around him genuinely worried. He cried. He grieved. He doubted. He just didn't let any of it be the final word. Every loss built something in him that no victory ever could have. A bone-deep knowledge that he could survive, that the worst thing could happen and he would still be standing. That knowledge is only available on the other side of difficulty. You cannot buy it, you cannot borrow it, you can only earn it by going through the thing you were afraid you couldn't go through and discovering that you could. I want to push back on something for a moment. There's an idea floating around, comfortable, well packaged, repeated so often it sounds like wisdom, that goes something like this. If it's really meant for you, it won't feel this hard. If you're on the right path, things will flow. I understand the appeal, but I think it's one of the most quietly dangerous ideas you can carry into a serious pursuit. Because the truth, the actual, historical, provable truth, is the opposite. Walt Disney was fired from a newspaper. The editor said he lacked imagination. Walt Disney, no imagination. J.K. Rowling was a single mother on welfare, writing in a cafe while her daughter slept in a stroller next to her. Harry Potter was rejected by 12 publishers. 12 people read those pages and said no. She kept going, not because it felt easy, not because the signs were all pointing yes, but because the story was hers and it needed to be told. And that was reason enough. The resistance you feel, that friction, that difficulty, that sense of pushing against something that doesn't want to move, that isn't a sign you're going the wrong way. Sometimes it's the clearest sign you're going exactly the right way. But here's where it gets personal. Persistence without direction is just stubbornness. What separates the two is your why, not the surface why, not the answer you give when someone asks about your goals at a dinner party. The real one, the one that lives in the part of you that doesn't negotiate with fear. Is it a face, a child, a parent, someone who believed in you when you didn't believe in yourself? Is it something you've seen, a version of life you've glimpsed from a distance and can't stop thinking about? It's something you felt, a gift, a thing you can do that the world hasn't fully seen yet, and somewhere in you there's a quiet outrage at the idea of it going unexpressed. Find that, name it, write it down if you have to, because when the hard moments come, and they will come, you don't survive them on willpower alone. Willpower runs out. You survive them because you're anchored to something real enough that turning back would cost more than going forward. A tree doesn't stay standing in a storm because it's rigid. It stays standing because its roots go down further than the wind can reach. Your why is your roots. Make them deep. I want to tell you something that doesn't get said enough. The mind that persists doesn't just reach the destination, it becomes something different along the way. Every time you do the thing that scared you, your relationship with fear changes. Not all at once, slowly, quietly, almost without you noticing, but it changes. Every time you get up after something knocks you down, your definition of what knocked down means shifts. Things that would have finished you 2 years ago become things you walk through on a Tuesday. Kobe Bryant was not born with a different body. What he built, which is more interesting, was a relationship with difficulty that other people didn't have. While everyone else was resting, he was working. Not because he loved suffering, because he understood what repeated difficulty does to a person. It makes them someone who can handle difficulty. Beethoven went deaf. A composer going deaf. It is hard to imagine a more devastating loss for a person whose entire gift is wrapped up in sound. And yet the music he wrote after he lost his hearing is considered some of the most profound ever composed. What does that mean? It means the loss didn't silence him. It pushed him somewhere deeper. Somewhere he might never have gone if life had stayed comfortable. I want to be honest with you about something. There will be days when none of this feels true. When the quote doesn't land. When the story about Edison feels like something from another world. When you sit with your own situation and it just feels heavy and still and genuinely hard. Those days are not failures. They are not signs that you're doing it wrong. Churchill, the man whose voice became the sound of defiance for an entire civilization, suffered from what he called his black dog. Deep, paralyzing depression that could lay him flat for days. The man who told Britain it would never surrender knew intimately what it felt like to want to, and he showed up anyway. Not every day feeling like a lion. Some days feeling like a man who was doing his best and hoping it was enough. That's allowed. That's actually what it looks like most of the time. Not triumph, just continuation. Not glory, just showing up one more time when you could have stayed down. Discipline isn't the absence of struggle. It's the commitment to act in spite of it. You don't have to feel ready. You just have to go. History is not remembered in the moments of ease. It's remembered in the moments when someone, against every reasonable argument to stop, decided to continue. Edison at 67, watching his laboratory burn, already thinking about what he'd build next. Lincoln after his 8th public defeat, quietly preparing for the 9th attempt. Mandela walking out of 27 years of imprisonment, not diminished, not broken, not bent toward vengeance, but somehow larger than when he went in. These are not stories about people who had it easier than you. These are stories about people who decided, at some point in the dark, that the thing they were building was worth the cost of building it. And so I want to leave you with something simple. Not a strategy, not a system, just a question. What is the thing, the real thing, the one that keeps coming back, that you have not yet given everything to? Because that thing is still waiting. It hasn't moved, it hasn't given up on you. It's just waiting for the moment you stop treating it like a maybe and start treating it like a certainty. Your mind, when it is made up, when it is committed, when it has decided that stopping is simply not one of the available options, will always find a way. It has done it for every person in this story. It will do it for you. The only question left is whether you let it.